My computer is a bit slow today. But I mentioned on Friday evening that it would be nice to have some little comments from Kripa and Sangita about your now cessation of both subtle bodies. As Kripa's causal body has been in cessation for years now, and astral body for almost 2 months. Almost. And then Sangita's has similar situation, and her astral body has been in cessation for, what is it, 4 weeks now? Yeah. So, ladies, would be nice if you could say something for everybody's benefit. We will, by the way, before continuing, we are starting a new podcast series on Lion Faced Guru podcast. It's like a continuation of the Mahasiddha interviews that were recorded how many years ago? 3-4 years ago. And so that will also be coming, but something brief from ladies, please.
Do you want to go, Kripa?
Well, is there a specific question, or should I just...
Yes, how does it feel after 2 subtle bodies cease? That's the question.
Okay. Well, it feels pretty normal now. I don't kind of realize, I got used to it, I have to say, that it's very quiet in a sense. There is, it's like it's an ease, it's like pressure also to do something or to achieve something has fallen away for me, what I can say. It's also very different to meditate and to the experience in retreats. But you still feel that the blessing is opening up, for example, the body, in my case. You feel, but it lights up pretty quick. Yeah. On the body side, I was very tired. There is a lot of tiredness coming up, and I explain it and I have different explanation. I think now that this pressure is away, or this need for practice, and this buzz from the astral body, that the body gets proper rest that it hadn't had in many years. And for me, it's now, for example, I can just lie in my bed in the morning and relax and feel the body, and I don't have so much the urge to do something. That's for the moment. Sangita, your turn.
All right. So my astral body cessation started 4 weeks ago on Saturday, on sometime during my sleep. So it wasn't a very obvious experience. However, I noticed later on in the evening that there was this very subtle but solid internal smoothness when there was this kind of like slight agitated energies in different places. And then I realized that had already been gone since the morning. And it's been very interesting because I've noticed that when I've had a rough time, I've sometimes just like being around somebody whose nervous system has been more regulated than mine, that has had an effect on me. So this kind of like co-regulation. But now I'm just kind of regulated in myself, so I don't need any. There's like no other people's kind of those, for instance, Michael, his presence doesn't cause me anymore to get kind of like a relaxation if I've been stressed, just like by hugging or kind of this co-regulation. So I am already kind of regulated in myself because there's no internal friction, there's no clinging to anything. So you don't need to seek, you don't need to practice to be regulated, you don't need to do anything, but you've kind of arrived at the normal baseline that you use, that before you had to do something to kind of arrive there, but now you're just kind of spontaneously there. And it also means I realized I don't have a fear of heights. I had to do a bit of climbing in the countryside because we had a water leakage, and I was sitting up on kattatuoli, high up, like 3-4 meters up in the air with my feet dangling down, and I was like, okay, I mean, I do not want to fall down, but I wasn't like, there wasn't this kind of like paralyzing, like kind of like fear. So those things have subsided too, and there's just this. It doesn't even feel ordinary. It just feels like I'm me. It's not even I am me. I am just me, because it's so basic. There's nothing extra. It's not disappointing or not worth kind of aiming for attainment wise, but it's just so baseline. There's just like this. You can't even call it satisfaction, because that means there's dissatisfaction. It's just like this very comprehensive, basic feeling good in yourself that doesn't. The needle doesn't kind of sway anymore. You're not restless, and you're not affected by your unconscious patterns. I remember on Sunday, after the cessation started on Saturday, so I'm teaching my son to drive, and we were driving, and or he was driving, and he was supposed to take a right turn, and then he swayed quite far to the left to take the right turn. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Kind of, that was my spontaneous reaction, this kind of like shock. A bit of terror at the same time, because I don't want him to trash the car. But I caught that reaction. So like I was aware as it was arising. So I was just like, what the f... And then I cut it off. And then I was like, I can't have these emotions. So I can't be in an astral body cessation. And then I kind of looked at my emotions. And then I realized that, there's no friction. That was the appropriate expression in that situation, which caught me off guard, and I was surprised. So that what the fuck are you doing was the appropriate reaction, even if I didn't let it come out the whole way, because we would have ended in an argument. But so I just noticed I've had like misconceptions about what the experience is. So it's been a bit of a learning curve at the same time to understand what remains. And it's actually that everything remains of the emotions. It's just our kind of how we relate to those emotions that has completely dropped away. The shoulds and shouldn'ts and guilts and wants and anger and all kinds of like this mental bus and subconscious bus around them that's just gone. Yeah, I have a lot more to say, but yeah. Should we save it to the podcast or should I go on?
Yeah, just go on. Keep
Okay.
going.
I think it's about the tiredness that Kripa mentioned. So I had a burnout, and a lot of my practice I've kind of like seen in the astral body purification that once the causal body was finished, there was already a big helpotus, relief in in kind of addressing the burnout. But now with the astral body, I've also kind of dug through the source, kind of causes for my behavioral patterns that led me to have and kind of like the trauma patterns and everything else that led me to the burnout. And now with the physical tiredness, it doesn't feel as much of a constriction. It just feels like this almost paralyzing tiredness. Because when I'm not in a physical dark night, then it's very clear. You have so much energy. There's like this abundance of life force that just kind of like flows. And then when you're in a physical dark night, practice helps, but it seems to help just long enough as you're practicing, and then you kind of sink. So it doesn't. It's very thick somehow, the stuff in the physical tissues, like the tiredness. So you can't. It doesn't like. Yeah, I've been doing, instead of hung pets or om pats, I've been doing like sharp hu mantras with kind of like contracting at the same time, and that seems to like create a small opening and then it collapses, and a small opening and then it collapses. So I've had like my energy levels have been very from one extreme to the other. So there doesn't seem to be a middle ground, but it's either a dark night or then you're feeling very, very clear and energized. So, yeah. I think Milia asked, you had a question, I saw it, but I didn't quite see. I'm curious, do the people around you notice something being different? I know Michael has said that when he sleeps next to me, if he's feeling agitated or has a hard time in calming down, he just kind of like places a hand on me and everything quiets down inside him. And I've seen it with my kids too, that they're somehow better regulated. I know my relationship with my ex-husband is a lot easier because I don't carry the trauma load anymore, so there's not this kind of like baseline friction kind of poking behind everything. So I think everything's easier that way too. I was talking about this with my parents. They couldn't really relate, but they recognized that something profound had happened to me, that I felt very different. So they were happy about that, but they couldn't really, they didn't really understand what was going on. Yeah, but in general, it's quite interesting because it feels, I remember when I had my last cessation, like short cessation, before this one, and I was hugging my daughter during that sensation, and it actually made me a bit sad because it felt like I could actually for the first time be and hug her as myself. and she's turning 15, and it was the first time that I was actually able to be there as me, which was really sad. And so that kind of implies that there's this kind of like sense of separation that drops away, that you can actually like be intimate with everything. I don't mean in a sexual way, but just like that there's this intimacy, like this direct experience, which is just like absolutely beautiful. So yeah.
How about Kripa? Do the people around you notice something being different?
Generally, no. Didn't say anything. I also met practitioners, other practitioners. Couldn't point the finger on anything. But I also noticed that I get more hugs from my kids. So they come, and this is a bit surprising. In case of for example, for my son who turns 20, he was, it's very obvious. And the same goes kind of for my mother. She is also she connects very well to me. It's very from her heart. And maybe I have to say she's gliding into a dementia. So, and I feel with me that she's very open and loving compared when I hear what my siblings tell me about how they experience her. I also had a wonderful moment when she also has aches on her back, and when I was saying goodbye, I hugged her and just felt her back and touched a little bit here and there and could feel where the tension is, and just only pressed a little bit. And after that she called me and said she feels so much better, and she was coming for massages to me, and now it's much better. That was really nice. At work, I'm working with a few autistic children, and they look at me like I would kind of be something different. So I think they feel something different when they see me. I also, at least with two, I saw that I had the impression that they are checking the space above my head. So maybe they see something there that I say ordinary people don't see. With children anyway, at the hospital is very, very lovely to connect, because they instantly feel safe, and you can feel they feel seen. Yes, but most people, other people, they didn't feel anything or wouldn't have any say anything. It's funny that I also had almost the same experience as you, Sangita, with learning. My daughter is also learning to drive, and it was almost 100% the same experience that I had. Also, I was shouting for her to stop the car now. Yeah, it's funny.
I could add about the kids. We have this nighttime ritual with Nelly that I give her massage her hands or back, and it's been increasingly important for her again, and usually my son he isn't that concerned about kind of my comings and goings as he's 17, and he's more so focused on how much he can spend time with his friends and go to handball practice and so on. But there was a Wednesday, the first Wednesday after the cessation started, he actually asked me, "So, Mom, when are you coming home?" When I was heading to guide the Finnish Sangha's Amrita Mandala session. So, which he never asks me when I'm coming home, and he's also quite fond of hugging, and he tries to play a bit of a kind of like that. It's a bit difficult, but then he kind of like, you can feel how he kind of like just melts into it. So it's a really nice experience, and animals feel it too. Like all the dogs here in the neighborhood come and want to greet, and you can see that small children somehow kind of like, if you look at them and greet them, they're just kind of like, oh, kind of like really, really looking. Yeah. So they see and sense differently than adults do.
What I wanted to ask regarding practice, it's also for me, it's physical practice works very good. And also maybe just walking with mantras. And I had a virus, at least one last week, and then I wasn't able to move properly because I was having these pains in the joint and especially in my feet. And then I could really feel that the pressure and the darkness coming in.
Yeah, I could add. So I've had these stubborn pains for a very, very long time, both in my left calf, and then I've had a rib that just kind of like seems to pop out of place, that I've learned to adjust myself. Michael knows how to adjust it, and the kids don't do too. But that hasn't bothered me for a week now. There was still some traces of it, but when I had to, kind of like Baba's had this kind of like popping here, a bit of a similar thing with the rib, but it hasn't bothered me now for this last week at all. I just realized now, but and it went from needing to pop it several times a day to maybe every other day, and now I don't even remember when I would have needed to adjust it this last time. So those stubborn pains can, yeah, it still has, I can feel some discomfort in the physical tissues, but it's nowhere near what it was before, because I couldn't breathe deeply, like properly, to get my rib cage to kind of open up and contract without this very, very sharp stinging pain. So and that was the calf and the traumas, knots in the heart were kind of like pulling on the physical tissues so hard that it caused the rib to slightly dislocate, not like completely dislocate, but I don't know how many different movement axes you have, but so at least one or two of them were out of alignment regularly. But that seems to be sorted out.
What is also interesting for me that so it's still a process going on that I see at my life and realize how much that trauma patterns that I had formed my life. That's kind of interesting to see when I look now at my life, and I see exactly that. In my case, for example, an attachment, how it formed my relationships, or why I acted this way in that situation. This is for me interesting to see when I look at my life. And it's also interesting now to feel that it's not there anymore. So I also realize that I have in present situation, I have more options to choose from how I want to act for myself in my life, because there is this restriction that was caused, for example, through an attachment, is not there anymore. And it's also interesting because for me it's I'm asking again myself again, how do I want to live this life? What do I want to do with my time? What is a real purpose that I could find meaningful? And I also realized that I think that's a process that is still in developing. That is, but what I can say for the moment, that there is when I look at something in my life or something in life in general that I once was that once was attractive for me to attain, kind of leaves me. It doesn't pull me the same way as it used to. So there's this kind of openness that I am in now to kind of find a new direction, or maybe it doesn't give a new direction as I was used to before. So this is for me still an ongoing process.
Yeah, I think it's a very it still kind of like somehow takes me I have a hard time kind of like believing that this is it, because I've been practicing for 11 years, and that yeah, it's not much. And like, yeah, I'm 46 now, so hopefully I'll have, yeah, several good years ahead of me. But it's at the same time quite sad to see how I built up my life and the patterns that I kind of believe and beliefs I subscribed, and the choices I made. I had these like somehow like inclinations that, okay, there's like I'm building something and it's not on solid ground, but I didn't know what the solid ground was, so I was kind of moving forward in ways that I thought I was supposed to move forward. But very, very little of that was actually coming from a, kind of my core essence, or more so performing and doing things that were somehow expected of me. And it's I've always admired Kripa for her devotion, and Baba too, and I've always somehow thought that that's kind of like how you become. And then I was like, I have to be doing this somehow wrong. I mean, of course I feel compassion. I wouldn't, this is the thing I would want for everybody. like for everybody to really know themselves. And it's such a natural thing. It's nothing elaborate, and it's just everything stripped away. And then I was like, but what, like, where's that? It just like, it's a weird thing because we've been cultivating bodhicitta. And then when you kind of arrive at that place, it doesn't, it's just a sincere wish. And I thought that it would need to be something more. And then I realized that, okay, but if this is like my core wish is for everybody to feel just like comfortable in their own skin and in their own essence and kind of arrive home, that's it. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. It's that's yeah. So that's, yeah. And that's why we practice. And I mean, God, I didn't even know in the beginning why we practiced, like what the end result would be. I was practicing because I felt shit. My life was a mess. I wanted an escape hatch from my own life. And I was like in it for all the wrong reasons in the beginning. So it's it's wonderful kind of how we grow in maturity and insight, even if we start off on a very, very wrong trajectory and with very wrong motivation, that how the correct view kind of corrects that as kind of like along the way. So Per was asking, does it feel neutral or is there a natural joyfulness? I would say both. I mean, sometimes you feel, well, yeah. Sometimes there's like everything. There's like the spontaneous feelings. Like I'm kind of like emotional right now and sad, but it's kind of like more happy tears, a bit sad tears at the same time. But do you mean with neutral that you don't have feelings, or that, what do you mean with neutral? That's maybe.
No, not necessarily that you don't have feeling. Neutral would be more like the empty clarity aspect. But joyfulness would be more the aliveness feeling, yeah, loving, joyful, a natural kind of, yeah, like that, joy for life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the if you talk about the clarity that comes with the finishing the causal body, like the first of the kleshas, finishing that, the ignorance. But there's so much left after that. The whole it feels to me like that's when the maturing process starts, when you actually start to dig through your the whole astral body and the rest of the kleshas. And that's the you're still under, you don't act from self-based confusion, but you act like this is when you finish causal body. You don't act from self-based confusion, but you still have a lot of karmic winds going on in your system that makes you just like completely irrational sometimes. Not in a self-based way, but they just come from these blind spots, your reactions. So you're very blind to your own behavior even at that point. So it's just kind of like half of it. And there's another question. Or Kripa, did you want to ask or say something to the neutral or natural joyfulness?
To me, it feels quite neutral, I would say. But it's also kind of difficult to say because you're so much in it. You don't look at it from the outside. and to compare it to how it was before, I can only say that it's definitely, it's joyful and it's very alive every moment.
Yeah,
It's
I think
always
that
joyful, always like smiling, like brightness, and yeah, in that way.
yeah, I
To me, it
think
feels sometimes natural, but when I compare to how it was before, it's definitely joyful. Yeah. And what I also wanted to say, you mentioned, Sangita, that you have the feeling that there was so many years without being really you. And I can look at it quite differently, because I also see that it always was the best that I just was able to do. And every one of us, I think, at every moment on our in our life, we are just the best version of that person at that time. When I look back now, we're just trying, as long as we are on the path, I think we're, yeah, trying to move forward in the best intention most of the time. And there's also, when I look back, a kind of a perfection in what happened to me in my life at every moment. So I think every dark night or every happening, when I look back, had its reasons to bring up this or bring up that and make us aware of this or that pattern and work through it. So it's like I trust very much that this is how it's happening. There is a perfection in that.
I could still add that when we haven't arrived at the causal body cessation, it's like, if you think about guru yoga, you start off here and then the guru charge is here, and then you kind of feel the effect and the aliveness and the love. But the closer you get, the less forceful, there's like the kind of oomph in it kind of isn't as much, and it feels it doesn't feel as rich anymore, because you're kind of arriving to that whole the same realization. So you're in that sense, I think it's difficult to say that there's the way that you would experience joyfulness before an astral body cessation is very different than now, because you have arrived. So you're kind of like never separate from it, and it's just a part of your being. So I don't know, does it make sense? It's, yeah. And then there was a question on what is enlightenment? How do you feel about this term? Enlightenment, that is. I don't like it at all. I think it's, knowing how I feel now, I don't like it at all. I think it's completely misleading. It's such a loaded word, and it's something so ordinary and so, in some sense, obvious, that we're only arriving in us to ourselves, to who we've always been. And even if we have severe trauma, and if we have a lot of selfishness and other patterns, it's still the process of arriving kind of like home to baseline us. So I myself don't like it at all. If somebody would have tried to explain to me what enlightenment is back in the beginning, I wouldn't have understood it like through, I don't know, being able to multiply yourself into so and so many and whatever crazy cities and stuff. I mean, sure, you might get some kind of extra kind of I hesitate to call them CDs, but capabilities and kind of, but they're just kind of natural extensions of who you are. And as we have the physical body and the subtle body, so it doesn't but that's a completely different different subject. But I don't like the word enlightenment at all. I think it's misleading and too loaded, and but I get that you like there's so little discussion with first-hand kind of knowledge about the actual experience, that it kind of gets to this kind of like be this really mystical thing when it's in fact the very, very opposite. It's very sober. I actually told Michael that this is the first, like, someone who has astral body and causal body in cessation. Well, that's kind of my take, at least at this point, but why not physical body too? That's the person you could actually say to, well, that's just who they are. Because nothing of that is distorted. Say that to anyone else, and you're talking about selfishness, you're talking about trauma patterns, you're talking about anger, coping mechanisms, anything else. That they've created this identity that you feel is them, but in fact it's just this heap of labels and kind of shit in their system. But somebody who has actually kind of returned home back to them, to that person you can say about, okay, that's just who they are. What do you, Kripa, think about the enlightenment term?
Yes, enlightenment is something I always imagine is high above and out of reach, but it's completely grounded in the present moment, and it's something real. I think for many people, enlightenment is not allowed to be real because they had to do something. They had to change their life. They had to adjust their behavior and actually moving somewhere. So many people, I think, prefer to enlightenment being something completely mysterious. So that they can, with a good conscience, say, I don't have to do anything. It's somewhere, somehow, not in my reach, but it's real. And you can get there. In that sense, enlightenment is not a good term. But from the other side, if you look at the term enlightenment, it's with light, and it's also means that you bring light into yourself, into who you are, and into your habits and patterns, how you work. Does not mean that you have to work differently, but you bring light into it. You see it, and you have seen it, and you you don't hide behind anything anymore. It's just a relief.
And then there's a question on do you still feel the need to meditate, or is no difference between meditation and just living? This was actually an interesting observation that I made with the help of the title of the video, that the staring video that Baba named. How did you name it? But anyway, also like arriving at non-meditation was basically the title, and I hadn't thought about it that way because, well, we do non-meditation with the mind, trying to just let everything drop. And it occurred to me that actually that is where we have arrived, when I kind of sensed into how I feel internally, that there's just this kind of absolute being present with everything, thoughts and whatever is going on in my body. So there really isn't a difference between meditation and just living and being. But that's kind of they have arrived at the same point. But having said that, there are still those echoes in the physical tissues that I was talking about, that really sticky, thick tiredness. So I do need to practice, and I feel the effects immediately if I don't practice. It just weighs me down. But that's physical practice, kind of like bringing in the charge to the physical tissues. It doesn't bring any more insight or wisdom or remove selfishness or patterns or anything else. It's just these imprints in the physical tissues that still kind of, I don't want to say haunt, but it's kind of almost haunting. I mean, it's this very thin feeling. You can... Yeah, I don't know how to explain this, but there's like this faint whisper. You don't have the reaction, but there's just this really faint whisper that this is how you used to react. This very, very faint. You don't act that way, but there's this small kind of echo, like this, and kind of that comes from the physical tissues. But that's not. That's it. It's a different kind of meditative practice than practice that focuses on causal body or astral body. And it's also quite obvious that causal body practice and astral body practice does not address that tiredness and that thick whatever stuff you have in your astral body, which was an interesting thing to learn, because usually the charge is very strong when you lead a session, and there's this immense clarity and freshness after. But when I've led sessions that have only been focused on either causal body or astral body, that it hasn't cut through that sticky tiredness, which it did when I was working on the meridians. Even if we were practicing on causal body or doing causal body practices, it still had a roundabout effect on the astral body. But there doesn't seem that those practices kind of affects the physical tissues. So it was an interesting experience, just because there wasn't this kind of big relief after the leading of the session, so it didn't cut through that tiredness. So yes, I still feel the need to do those physical practices. How about you, Kripa? Can you speak up a bit when you talk?
Yes. It actually did not occur to me that I don't want or need to meditate anymore. I didn't think about it. So I was just doing it as I usually was. So can't answer at the moment.
Do you notice there's a difference between kind of your normal just living and meditating? Does it cause a change or anything?
On a certain level, there is a difference, yes, still, when I meditate. Yes, but for me, meditation is also connecting the masters and applying bodhicitta. I wouldn't want to miss that, I think, even if I didn't have to.
But does that mean that your clarity increases, or does the openness and smoothness inside the body change?
Clarity, no, and it still, for me, it opens the heart. I still feel that effect. And the physical practice is it's difficult to say. I did never try not to do it, so I also I'm exploring kind of I think already before I worked on the physical practice, and I'm now still working on the physical practice. And when I look back, for me, it's difficult also to say. I don't think that maybe let's say like this. I don't think that the path of healing on light and light does only work on the astral body. And I'm not sure if the path of clarity only works with the Dharmakaya. As well as when I do physical practice, it does not only get into the physical body. Yes, but of course I feel effect when I do physical practice, and I especially feel the effect of shouting, or also contraction, physical dynamic contraction, or applying E.
Have you noticed the E getting spontaneously activated when you're doing practice, or like bringing in guru charge or chanting Hu mantra?
Yes, especially with Bodhidharma.
Yeah.
Also, I had one moment that I felt it's like E is arriving just with breathing.
Huh. I haven't tried that or had that. Yeah. We're getting challenged. So what's the point? Doesn't sound that impressive. Do you think there's a point? I wouldn't want to go back, that's for sure. It's I yeah. But I think that's the whole point, is that we've made it into this somehow unattainable kind of castle up in the clouds for the select few, and you can only collect merit 10 life, like in this lifetime and the 10 next lifetimes, and then maybe you will have a chance to perhaps have a go at reaching enlightenment, even if I don't want to call it that, but kind of arriving back home. So I think the big point is that we've made it into some kind of really elaborate thing that's unattainable, like this somehow fantasy that's unreachable. And that's the problem, because when it's in fact something so natural and something so wholesome, your like entire psyche, no, like you've addressed everything that you have, all distortions, all selfishness, all traumas, all anger, ignorance. Like there's like no part of yourself that you don't know. And it's kind of, I understand that it's hard to imagine that you wouldn't be reactive in certain situations, but that reactiveness is the kind of territory for the practice, what you're working through. So, and I mean, no, it's not an easy process, but arrive at something inside you that is completely unmovable and unshakable and in perfect harmony, and it doesn't create friction with anything around you. Yeah, why wouldn't you? Yeah, it's like it saves you so much energy, so much headache. It just makes life easy. That's it. It makes life, like, it doesn't change your outer circumstances. I mean, I still have 2 dogs who regularly get diarrhea, and I wake up in the middle of the night to a smelly poop on the floor. That doesn't change. But I mean, it is what life is. It doesn't shake me internally. I still know who I am. I'm not a bad person even if my dogs have diarrhea because of whatever things. It's I don't need you have the perfect definition of yourself in you. That can't be broken, that can't be distorted. And you live your life with your job, with your family, with bills to pay. And they still stay there. But you're doing it as you. You're doing it as your whole you, without friction, without trying to create some kind of narratives or storylines. But you're there as yourself. And that's enough. And that we're all enough. And we all have that enoughness in ourselves. So I think the problem is we don't know what enlightenment is, and I think we have a very, very wrong conception about the whole, what it entails. And it isn't impressive. It's very wholesome, and nothing that's wholesome is ever very, very impressive. Even if it is as an unfortunately, we aren't that many who can talk about this. So I guess in that sense it's impressive, but it doesn't feel like I wouldn't want to throw a party like I don't want to be congratulated. I just like my sincere hope is that everybody could experience this. Yeah. What do you think, Kripa?
Yes, it's not impressive, but it's also I think that's the relief that this is not. That it does not have to be anything. That it's not impressive. And that you think you would give it away like nothing.
There's a question. If you want to take it, Kripa, do you still feel that you need a pause, holiday from your family or dogs or work? Do you want to start off answering that?
Yes, of course I need breaks, and I like to have my time for myself. But it's not, I would say, as urgent. There are moments that I think I can't anymore, and it's impossible to cope with that any longer. That is not there. So I'm kind of not that tested like if I had very small kids or I had to work hours and hours a week. I still need breaks, and I still want things. I wish things and work for them very normal. But that is this closing in, if I think, oh, now I have still to work for half a day, and oh, that's horrible. Well, it's, for me, it's much easier to take one after the other and go with the moment and know that the break is coming, and it's easier, much easier to just be with what is present, I would say.
Yeah. I was just thinking that I think for me it's actually been one of the things that I've noticed that I've pushed through so much and disregarded my own both boundaries but also kind of energy levels that I feel it's actually easier to take time for myself now because I don't feel guilty about it. I know I need that time to recover. If I don't take that time, I will not recover. I don't feel bad if I arrive at 10 o'clock to work because I slept in until 8 or 8:30 in the morning because I had that's one of the things. I have a difficult time falling asleep in the evening because I'm so clear. Even if I'm tired, I'm clear. There's this baseline energeticness underneath that kind of keeps me afloat even if my physical body is tired. So sometimes it's very difficult to fall asleep. But it just means that I allow, well, it's important to kind of like use the right words because this is where the difference comes in. I wasn't able to previously allow myself to rest because I had this different trauma patterns about fear of rejection and not being enough, and I need to do this and I need to do that, and but as those have dropped away, I recognize the base need for rest, and then I know, okay, so then I need to rest. I need to sleep in a bit longer. Not that I always have the time, but I recognize it and I don't feel guilty about it. And even if I can't take it, like today, it's been a very, very long and hectic day, the whole weekend, in fact. But so I'll probably, tomorrow, I'll need to rest more. Unfortunately, my life circumstances don't allow me to kind of rest whenever I want to. But I sometimes, I mean, I do need to push through certain things, but there's still this recognition about my internal state, and I know what I need to do in order to fix it, and I don't feel bad because I used to do that I had this whole narrative that I should push through and I'm needed and I can't arrive late at work and all kinds of like blah blah blah, this elaborate thing, when it's really very, very simple that to kind of tune in and know. So I think it's only natural to also have frustration. For instance, if the dogs have diarrhea in the night and I would want to sleep, so then the frustration about needing to get up in the middle of the night is a natural reaction. And that's been like what I've had, like what I was already referencing earlier, was that I had this, I didn't really understand what remains and what doesn't remain. So kind of frustration and anger and kind of what we perceive as more negative emotions or kind of like not positive emotions. I kind of had the idea that you'd only be like this, kind of more on the other side of the emotional register, but it is the whole register. So why couldn't I be frustrated if I need to get up in the middle of the night to pick up dog poop? If my son's out and I can't get a hold of him and I've tried to call several times, that's the appropriate reaction because I need an answer and a reply and to have the following things kind of whatever coordination we need to do. So it's very interesting to learn to know yourself for the first time. It is a learning curve. In learning curve in the sense of learning to know who you are without those patterns and conditionings and traumas that you've had. And it's also quite interesting to, like, you don't need to be, like, I maybe at one point would have been really embarrassed about talking about dog poop. God, there's a lot of dog poop talk here right now. But anyway, but like these certain subjects I would have been devastated to talk about because whatever, losing face and but it's very, very easy to talk about all kinds of things because you know who you are and you've arrived, so you're just you're talking from who you are and your, I don't even want to say opinions because it's not opinions, but it's kind of like just like your personality coming through. So, and you know you have shortcomings, and I'm not a very good master, and I have so many things coming and going, and I haven't, like, you don't magically somehow become a master of organizing all your commitments, but sometimes things just pop up and then you need to adjust. But that doesn't like rock the core you. It's just another thing kind of floating by on the outside, but you're still kind of your composed you. Sure, you can have reactions, but it doesn't like move your core being. It doesn't squeeze you or kind of move you somewhere. Yeah. I think we've been at it for an hour. Were there any more questions?
I have a question for, not really a question, but invitation for folks, you who have listened to Kripa and Sangita. How does it sound to you? How does things that they have said sound to you? Would be lovely to hear.
It sounds like exactly what I want. Yeah. Like that soberness, that down to earth, nothing high flying, fantasy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds great. Just to be me would be such a relief. Yeah, perfect.
For me, it sounds like very obvious that maybe I'm close to same results soon, sooner or later.
For me, it sounds like I get this, or at least in parts when you talked about it, like not maybe sadness, but like this longing, kind of to come home. It's like missing it.
So thank you. Thank you so much. And especially Sangita, I'm really grateful that you explained with multiple words your experience. And it was really touching. I'm actually so touched. And what you said about your daughter. So it's really these simple things, that we are not really present. It hurts my heart. So, because this is the suffering that we experience, we are not really present, we are not really there. And it's so beautiful to hear that you arrived. And of course, also, Kripa, that now you can be present to your children. So, this is so rare.
Thank you, Rani.
This is what touched me also so much, because to be as you be, and not to think what I have to do now, because I feel not good enough, I feel guilty, shamed, and from this part I have to do the things, I have to control everything, and I have to do thousands of things. And to be free from all these things, and then you can live what you really are, and it's, in the outcome it's much better as from the beginning, when you think you have to do the things like this and this and this and this because you are not good enough. And that's nice to hear. Thank you.
I'll just say something before we take a short break, which is that I just came to think of, it was so lovely to hear Kripa's and Gita's accounts and your examples of from your ordinary daily life. So you don't live in monasteries or like ashrams or in that kind of environment that we kind of subconsciously absorb from all the stories and the whole culture of Dharma. So it's lovely to hear it from the mouth of two Western ladies who have jobs, who have families, who have dogs with diarrhea. And I also had this thought that listening to you, that what a pity it is that because there is such an apparent clarity, and I don't say depth because it's not depth, because depth is opposed to shallowness, but there is this sense of comprehensiveness, like a unquestionable authority. Do you understand? Like unquestionable authority when you speak of your experience and your life. It comes with such, I hesitate to say conviction, but it comes with such like unshakable feel and quality. I'm holding my fist, but I often am holding my fist, but it comes with such authenticity, that's the word, authenticity, that it's difficult not to be touched and moved and kind of awakened, like this message is something that there are so many people who speak about from some depth of awakening, but it's some depth. It is not comprehensive. It's not complete. Okay, right? So hearing you speak, it comes with such authenticity and in a sense authority that it's a very different very different to listen and to feel you speak. So I had this thought that there is something like merit is necessary for the path of awakening, for the path of enlightenment, that we need the so-called merit, which is readiness, willingness, and wanting to awaken. But what is also immensely, undoubtedly beneficial is to hear such actually enlightened, living people to speak about this full enlightenment, or Sambodhi, like it's called in Buddhism. So I just had this thought that, I wish so many people had the opportunity to listen to people, whether they are teachers or not, whether they are acharyas or not, whether they are gurus or not, that I just had this thought that it would be so spiritually, psychologically beneficial to hear such accounts that the ladies just gave. I thought they were so brilliant to listen. So thank you ladies, thanks very much. Let's sit for 5 minutes silently and then we'll take a short break.